In this episode, we embark on a journey of self-discovery, vulnerability, and personal growth. Today, we are honored to have Kayla Kuykendall, a sex and relationship therapist. Wow. Scottsdale Center for Sex and Relationship Therapy. Kayla brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and compassion to our discussion, offering invaluable insights that will undoubtedly transform the way we view and navigate our most intimate connections.
Oh my God.
Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to Olympia TV so that you never miss any of our episodes, especially, right? Never miss an episode. Like, subscribe, share. Welcome, Kayla.
Welcome. Thank you.
So excited for this one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So let's start. Let's get it.
All right.
How did you first
Let's get to
become
business.
interested? How did you first become interested in this field?
So I have always been interested in gender and sexuality and how we play into that as humans, and how are we attracted to the people we're attracted to? What connects us? My first internships, I worked with a domestic violence shelter for homeless women, transitional housing, and then the second major internship that I did was working with adults with severe mental illnesses in these intensive outpatient groups. So we'd meet for 3 hours talking about their symptoms and how they'd handle them and ways to cope. And every time, without fail, somebody would giggle like sex or masturbation. And, I was the youngest person in the room.
We know the immature ones.
We're going to be doing that a lot today.
And I was the youngest person in the room, but I was like, correct. You have no money. This is a great thing that would help your overall just health and well-being. It would be a great option for you to utilize if you wanted to cope with some things. And none of the other therapists even that were there they'd all kind of brush that aside really fast. And I just really started to realize there is a huge need for us to be able to talk about these topics
openly.
No one does. And I constantly hear from clients that I work with that I have never talked to anybody about this before. I've never said this before. And that's what I love, to be able to bring the comfort and just the openness to.
So you were comfortable with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such a taboo topic.
Yes.
And I've actually seen it as a sex coach before in the past, but it's something that so many relationships have this blockage or barrier to, and it can be the number one thing that can go, maybe go sour in a relationship, and to overcome it, people don't know how to do that.
So true. Yeah. And a lot of marriage and family therapists and things no one has by default the type of training and education that I have in order to do that. So it's an additional level of training and expertise. It's not something which I think is crazy, because what is it, money and sex are the two things that couples fight about the most. And so how are we not talking about this more?
Get a financial plan. You're a sex therapist.
Yes.
There you go.
Then you'll be set.
So are you always comfortable in your space, or does anything make you uncomfortable?
There's definitely moments when that's a big part of what my training was about, honestly. So I have my master's degree in counseling, and then I also went back for a second master's degree in human sexuality.
Right.
And my very first class in my human sexuality program was pretty much all about just exposing us to things and to say, what are your limits? What are you going to be comfortable with? How do you control your affect so that somebody's not talking about their deep, dark kink in front of you, and you're that would be really traumatizing.
Have to hide your face. What did you say?
And so
I didn't ask for that.
I only work with consensual sexuality, so I don't work with anything that crosses the board into non-consensual.
Right.
And so I guess that would technically be my ethical and legal line that I've got.
I see. So that would be another separate specialty for someone, let's say, that they have issues.
Sure. I mean, I've got the training for it. Yeah. So it's somebody who, I work with people who have experienced rapes and traumas and things like that, but not somebody who is a rapist, for example, or somebody who's working on, just that type of thing. It's just that ethically, I'm not going to take that on. I could work with that. I know lots of my colleagues who work within like the jail systems and things like that, but that's just, I prefer to help people more with the idea of expanding and enhancing their sexuality as opposed to being like, all right, how do we shut that down?
The healthy side.
So in case you could have someone that they've been, let's say, abused, and they're in a marriage or relationship, and that's affecting their current.
Definitely. How do we rebuild a level of trust with a partner if they've had trust broken from them with someone else in the past, or how do we reconnect with our body and be able to tap into those things so that they feel comfortable even being in a sexual experience, being able to both be like we talk about intimacy as sort of a synonym for sex so often, but really intimacy is something so separate. It's the building blocks of the connection that even make us open to sexuality.
With all the people that you've worked with, what are the things that people feel the most uncomfortable about when it comes to their sexual relationships?
I think that there's a big range for a specialty. I work with a lot of people, that's for sure. I see people about the worst things that they've ever experienced. I see people with the most amazing things that and just enhancing and encouraging things. And I also work with people who aren't actually there to work on sexuality issues, but they don't want to have to explain themselves to their therapist. So they maybe are a sexual minority of some sort, and so they don't want to have to come and talk to me, or they don't want to have to explain to their therapist what being non-monogamous is, or what being gay means. And so they come to me so we can just be comfortable with that. But I think some of the most common things are really just the idea of talking about it itself. Like what's the language we use? How do we communicate what our desires are? How do we experience pleasure with each other? Just being able to share and talk about, like people are very, very uncomfortable acknowledging the things that they like.
Why is that?
Taboo? I mean,
it really is. It's amazing how much it's something that everybody gets these messages so often in our society from different aspects of our culture that whether it's religious, political, like just all the different aspects of our identity, there could be something that's sort of teaching us that this is unspoken, this is shameful, this is something you're not supposed to do, and then you get married and now it's okay, but suddenly everything's supposed to magically be fine.
Right.
Well, it's not that it's shameful, it's just it's definitely the most vulnerable part of ourselves.
That too,
And so bringing people into that closed door, it's exposing something so vulnerable. And I think we're already self-conscious about things as it is, and then if we were to be vulnerable about the most intimate part of our life and open ourselves for judgment and ridicule on that, I think that scares a lot of people.
well, especially if they're seeing it for a problem and they're trying to fix it.
Exactly.
There's this wall or this barrier.
People do have
that's got to be tough.
Oh my gosh. I constantly have people who feel like something is wrong with them, and one of the great things I get to help them to understand is that they're not alone, and that actually a lot of people are experiencing these things.
Great.
Most people are struggling in similar ways. We just don't talk about it enough with each other.
One thing we do talk about a lot that I think ties a lot to our sex life is this idea of being comfortable in our own skin, our self-image and our body image and our how we feel about ourselves, and then being able to feel comfortable in front of somebody else in the most intimate ways. I think a lot of people struggle with that. Even people you would never think struggle with that.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. I think we are constantly assuming things of each other, right? I mean, especially for women, we're often sexualized so young, and that kind of takes away our own empowerment around how do I want to relate to my sexuality? What does this mean for me? Or we're told to cover up and not be sexual, right? We're getting these mixed messages around that, and it's such an interesting way that our self-esteem can play into our well-being and our connection with our sexual selves. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know people make all types of comments or thoughts or have preconceived notions about women with our types of physiques. I don't know. Sometimes they don't realize that we can be not so comfortable. We don't walk around thinking or feeling like, oh my God, I'm perfect, and we can do all these
I would say if anything.
What did you say?
all those positions. I can do all those positions.
You got to stretch it.
No, people just
Stretch it. Be flexible.
Absolutely.
But like deciding.
Flexible. Right, she's flexible.
But I'm still single. We're being vulnerable, I thought.
Yes.
Come on, guys. I'm taking it.
And that's the problem, right? Is that people make assumptions about that as opposed to talking to you. Yes.
flexible and I have sex. No, I'm just kidding.
You should. Let's make that happen.
Yes. Let's fix that.
But I think people in like our industry,
Yes.
if anything,
Yes.
they probably have maybe more self-image insecurity.
Issues.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure body
'Cause we
dysmorphia is
overanalyze.
huge and
Yes.
trying to
We're
really.
constantly critiquing ourselves,
Yes.
and
We're
we're
not right.
yeah.
It's interesting. I live on the beach, and it amazes me when I see somebody who like doesn't look perfect, but they feel so comfortable
Yeah.
in a bikini. And I'm not even kidding you. I go, I wish I had that confidence.
Yeah.
Because they're so free,
best.
and
I love
I don't want to wear a bikini unless I feel like I'm like perfect condition. And it's so crazy, because it's so freeing to just feel comfortable in your own skin, and that absolutely translates into how
Yes.
you feel in your intimate moments.
So maybe we're having a
Maybe we need
session with you. Yeah, really. It sounds like it because
Yes.
Well, walk us through kind of like what sessions are like, or what are
Sure.
most people coming to?
Yeah,
what is the
absolutely.
most common reason people come to see you?
Well, I work with individuals and couples, so I can see people one-on-one. I can see people together with their partner. It just depends on sort of how much is it something that they're trying to explore themselves and sort of their own internal stuff before they're working with somebody else, as opposed to the kind of partner dynamic together. Definitely just how do we explore intimacy? How do we build that? How do we experience more pleasure? How do we, especially for women, just get out of our heads
We
and
are
be in
so
our bodies?
in our heads.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Find those ways to, like going to what you said, like thinking about our body image and being comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
If your head is going a million miles an hour thinking about every little roll or moment and like, is my skin perfect
Yeah.
here?
right.
You're not then experiencing what does your body feel like? What is that sensation on my skin? What is this doing for me in this
Yeah.
moment?
Yes.
And that's a really amazing thing to kind of switch gears
Makes
and
sense.
start to think about like what are all the things that are helping in this moment
Yeah.
as opposed to focusing on the things that are just interrupting us or getting in the
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so
Now, do you meet with couples together? Yeah.
yeah, I usually will meet with couples together, and then we'll have what we call breakout sessions where I'll meet one-on-one with them and kind of sometimes to really get down to the nitty-gritty of something
Yeah.
with someone, sometimes to be able to help them to process what they're feeling before we bring it into the bigger space to talk with each other. Every couple is definitely unique in how comfortable or not they are with these things, and but I think being able to just talk through those issues with someone on, again, whether it's an actual like, hey, this is a dysfunction or an issue that we're having, or a big conflict because trust was broken, or we have different desire discrepancies is one of the biggest things I experience with my couples, and just really in general with the people I work with is one person has really high desire and one person has really low desire. That's one of the most common things that I see. Definitely.
So what advice then do you have for couples like that?
Well, we always work with the person that is like kind of at the base level of like where are we at with the lowest desire, because we're not going to push or force that to happen more. We're going to work with that first and really help for neither of them to feel like the identified patient in the room. This is a relationship issue. This is something that they're both a part of. It's not that one person is in the wrong for wanting less sex or the other person's a sex addict because they want too much sex. Like it's, no, you're both just in different places and how accessible that is for you.
Okay. We'll stop right here and take a break and come back, and I want to readdress this issue about the couple and what's going on. Guys, we'll be right back. We're back with Kayla
Kuykendall. You got it.
I love it.
Not at all.
Got it. Not a case. No, it's great. I'm like, hey, I'm going to let you take over.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You, let's do this.
Yes. Yeah, we got to get this advice for our viewers. Let's help.
So sexual health is a really important thing that I work with, and being able to connect that. One of the things I try to talk to all of my clients about is that sex doesn't happen in a vacuum. So everything that's happening in your lives, every other part of your world is impacting your sexuality. Mm-hmm. And your sexuality is having an influence on those other aspects of your life, right? So are we really feeling tapped into those things? Are we feeling good about the other aspects, or other things kind of falling apart? Right. I feel like I hear so often somebody, if I'm working with a couple, somebody will say sometimes like, we aren't even talking about sex. Like, what are we doing? I'm like, aren't we?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because there is.
So they say that you're not talking
Sure,
about
like
sex.
if we start using like non-sexual,
I
because
see.
people are often more comfortable
yeah.
exploring those things
Okay.
first.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so we'll start with some of
That's
those things.
interesting.
Yeah, but they're really parallel, the ways that we show up in other conflicts.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes. Yeah. And like one of the things is to think about is that, some people have sex in order to relax. Other people need to be relaxed in order to have sex. Right? And so finding which one you kind of match with and knowing what your partner really taps into with that is
so
huge connector.
interesting.
Have you found that, and I'm going to use men and women for an example for this, but have you found that there's like maybe more of like a generalization for men and versus women, and like
there's definitely lots of generalizations we can, nothing universal.
Right.
Definitely people that don't match with those things, but I think that a lot of the gender stereotypes and lessons that are sort of trained into us, the way we're socialized, plays a big role in that. And that's where a lot of the shame and negativity comes in for people is, like if a guy has lower sexual desire and he's been taught his whole life that he's the man is supposed to just want sex all the time.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Yes, or women are often taught to be the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have to be the one who says no. I have to be the one who stops this if need be. And that doesn't exactly allow us to then feel like we can be free and to explore things. Right? Like, it just doesn't.
Right. That's a very specific box.
Yes. One of my favorite things to talk about with, like, just be, like, again, going to your question of kind of what advice do we give, I love to talk about the real definition of foreplay. So
Get your pen and
yes.
What is it?
So,
the real definition.
things that we think of as foreplay, right, are honestly all the things that women are primarily stimulated by. So
Definitely.
oral sex, manual stimulation, so fingering, or just even making out and touching each other. All of these things are really women's primary source of pleasure.
Yes.
And so, only about 30% of women can orgasm from intercourse alone, by the way.
I'm so glad you're saying this. Oh my God. I'm like, should I reveal this one?
No. The answer is yes.
Yes. Let's get down.
Yes. Only about 3% of women is it their go-to. Women need clitoral stimulation.
Wow.
That's what we need. But so if all of that is foreplay, which may or may not be a part of the equation in some of our dynamics, then intercourse is what's sex. That's not a very balanced experience for people.
Yeah.
So I like to teach people that no. All of those things are part of the sexual encounter. And so then what's foreplay? What does that mean? Foreplay is everything that's happening in the relationship between the end of one sexual encounter until the next one begins.
That makes solid sense.
Are we flirting? Are we touching and giving kisses? Are we dancing in the kitchen? Are we
having a lot of revelations?
I am. I'm having so many revelations over here.
Or are we fighting? Are we throwing shade at each other? Are we insulting each other? Are we
That
distant?
energy.
Right? What are we doing in our relationship to build desire?
Right.
Build that intrigue in the experience even happening.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
So true. Yeah, my goodness. Like, I mean, I try now, I'm not going to go and say, just recently I was married for 25 years and I'm married now. But it took a while, like, for me to understand, like, okay, what's wrong with me? Because as far as, like, initiating sex, like, it was challenging. My husband and I, like, at the time, we owned a business together. And it was like, working all day and him being like my boss, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this. And then at night, I was like, dude, don't even come near me.
Yeah, don't tell me what to do anymore.
Well, and to think about you initiating, so what you're supposed to just
foreplay was
totally
not
reverse
good.
the roles and take over and all of a sudden as soon as you get home. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I definitely, I wasn't in that role. He was the one, and then now it's,
now you're supposed to be all of a
and he
sudden.
was upset, like, oh, you never.
I think that is
like, dude.
I think that is so. That's especially as a couple together for so long, you develop these certain roles, and it can be sometimes hard to break those rules. And then maybe you both want to like. Maybe you want to do it, and you know, like, but it's like, how do you then break that, like, whatever is blocking
those hurdles,
and making that initiation, or maybe you are, but maybe it's like maybe too subtle and it's not getting picked up. But
that is one of the biggest things, by the way, is those cues. The cues. Like we can overtly initiate. We can say, hey, do you want to go? You want to go to the bedroom? Or really, though, most of the time we're doing far more subtle things. We're giving the cues.
Women are probably way more subtle.
Oh yes.
We're like, I totally give you that like look.
It was so obvious.
I gave you the cue. Why didn't you pick up on it?
You think
I've worked with so many wonderful men who, are so hurt that their partner just doesn't want them. She doesn't desire them. She's never interested. Never shows any cues. And I talked to them about, what are maybe more subtle ways that she might be letting you know she's open to initiation?
Well, that's a good question to ask them, because the women probably are giving them cues
all the time.
Right.
I had this guy who came back the next week, and he was shocked. He was just like
she was giving cues
all week long. She'd been giving him cues. He was floored with how often she was trying to initiate sex and show him that he wanted something.
So what are some of the common cues then?
So I mean, we can go for bold to really subtle, right? So it could be subtle to bold.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really subtle ones might be that we're making sure we are showered and wearing something nice, right? We're not wearing the rattiest pajamas that we've got. We're instead putting on something that your partner knows that you feel really good in. First of all,
that means it's go time.
Yes.
If I come out in the lace and heels, it's go time.
That's luckily very obvious for women. Like we can put on some sort of lingerie and be like, duh. Hello.
I think that's
the extreme.
Yes.
That's not subtle.
But I mean, even just offering, like getting closer, wanting to like touch each other, and getting a little handsier, getting to where you're suggesting, maybe instead of watching another episode of your show you're watching, you're saying, hey, I know it's early, but you want to go to bed? You want to go to the bedroom for a while? Like giving those types of things, or even more. I had one woman who, whenever she was in the mood, but she was really shy about initiating, and so it was more of she wanted to let her husband know that she was open to him initiating if he was in the mood too. So when she was in the mood, she would set a glass of red wine on the counter for him to grab when he came home, and that was her cue. That and he could then take it up on that or not.
Would she be waiting for him in the room?
Well, she'd be just going about life.
That was a sign.
Signal.
So there wasn't pressure.
He came home and there was no wine on the counter.
It's white wine.
Sorry, it's just whiskey tonight, hon.
For like a consolation prize.
So in those situations, if the husband did not pick up that cue, and it's a very clear one, how would she handle that, like in this situation?
Absolutely.
Was that just
that was something we
for her?
intentionally would talk about before those types of things. So because the idea of giving those softer initiations, those softer cues, is that we're trying to take away the pressure of the situation. And so that was what was so indirect about that there might be some disappointment, there might be a little bit of need to work through those feelings, but because that was something that was just accepted as, hey, this is an offer, like this is, I'm open if you're feeling that way too, but there's not hard feelings if that's not something you want to take up.
Right.
Yeah. That's why, especially, like being a little bit, like if you're really bold with your initiation, we're a lot more likely to take that very personally, right? Like,
that's
true.
Well, and men seem like they're, like, I'll be completely honest, and I will say I am a very subtle cue type of woman.
Sure.
I feel like I give the cues, but they are subtle. Sometimes it's picked up on, but I feel like I'm putting out cues all the time. fine. But to me, I'm like, that was pretty obvious. But I think my husband is like much more blunt. So I don't think he picks up a lot of my cues. So for somebody who is coming to you, maybe they're coming to you without their partner, but they're saying like, I need help in this department. What advice would you give to someone like me, who did not have a partner with me to say like, this is what you need to, this is how you tell your husband.
That would be my first question actually is, have you told him?
Yeah. No.
Have you told him what your cues are? Because that's the biggest thing. Just
kind of common sense.
Yes.
Until you say it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you actually acknowledged and had that conversation together? Have you said, like when you're, again, not necessarily this overt thing, but hey, when you're in the mood, what are some of those subtle cues that I can look for to know that you'd be open if I initiated something?
Yeah.
Here are mine. And try to start to think about what are those things that together you can build.
Yeah.
This actually even goes into thinking about desire that I wanted to talk to you all about is the idea that we actually have what's called a dual model of desire. So our desire for sexuality comes from two different places. And most people don't know about these things. So the first one is called spontaneous desire, right? That's just, I'm horny. I'm in the mood. Well, I want to make something happen. Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but that spontaneous desire, I wouldn't say it pisses me off, but I feel like so many people expect that to be the case all the time, but it's not.
No.
In a long
relationship, it's like this is you might not have spontaneous sex everywhere.
Right. It's this light switch. It's either on or off, and we don't have the controls.
Yeah.
It's just happening. This is, by the way, where our other aspects of our health really come into play, because what's our diet like? How much hydration are we getting? How much sleep? What is our sleep like
stress
in general? How much stress? Are we on any kind of anti-anxiety, antidepressant, antihistamines? So if you're on an allergy medication, that dries out the mucous membranes in your nose. It also dries out everything else.
Really?
For men and women?
Yeah. And so I always joke that your wife's allergy pill is a big cock block. You might want to.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
Tell her just to live up to stuffy notes for a couple of days.
That's where we need to add in some enhancements a little bit.
I do take a lot of allergy medicine. I'm just outing myself right now.
And so that is then not sending, it's not sending those mental cues. If your body isn't responding, it's not going to then send the mental cue to your brain to say, oh, I'm turned on right now.
Right.
Right. Wow. And so it's just interrupting those pathways.
So I just go, I can't breathe, but I'm ready to go.
There you go.
We all had a massive visual of
just forgoing the allergy pill and just living life in suffering. The other form of desire is responsive desire. And and so that's especially what we want to tap into when we're in a long-term relationship, when we have other things that are just interrupting our lives. That just, again, any of those things kind of are decreasing the level of how much we're naturally experiencing that spontaneous, random desire. So, and especially because that doesn't really work for our lives. We don't match up all the time with that, right? But then we're just supposed to automatically be okay just because our partner, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So if one person is sort of spontaneously turned on, the other person is more responsive, which is where I get turned on by. I get turned on when, or I get turned off by, I get turned off when. So finding out what is how are we getting activated in that desire? What are some of the things that we can be adding to the experience?
You said something that really stood out to me, which is some people, they have to be relaxed to want it. Some people have to. Some people use it to relax. You know, and that's exactly the case with me and my husband. It's like I need to be relaxed, and he uses that to get relaxed.
Sure,
I think that's pretty normal for men and women.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree with you on that.
That really hit. It wasn't something I really thought about, but it really nailed it for us.
It makes a lot of sense.
Honestly,
and so if he can help you to get more relaxed, right? Give you a massage, help you just chill out for a while first.
That is so nail on the head.
Yes.
I'm going to make sure that he watches this.
There you go. Yes.
So
start talking about these things together.
Here at Jim, we have tons of clients, and of course, we're almost like counselors, almost like a bartender, so you hear a lot. But I feel like there's been so many relationships that have ended, and we've kind of talked about this on another episode, on how frequently you need to have sex.
Yeah.
And for some people, it becomes this job, or other people, this person overhears it and they're like, oh my gosh, you're having sex 4 times a week? My husband and I have sex once every 2 weeks, and now they feel the shame.
Yeah, you feel the sense of shame.
Yeah. And then it's like, but then this guy hears, you're having sex so many times a week. My wife, something's wrong with her.
Sure.
So, like, I know there's not a norm.
Definitely.
But what is the norm?
What is it?
But honestly, what is the average?
what's the
Because we
norm?
got into a discussion at our gym, and the answers were everywhere.
Oh,
so I don't even know what the norm is
absolutely.
for like adults.
Well, I definitely always encourage people to stay away from frequency goals and things like that,
Oh,
because
yeah. Thank you.
that doesn't work for people.
Totally.
Right? If it's saying it's like, all right, no, we want to have sex twice a week, and that's when we'll know that we're in a really healthy place in our sex life. And then someone gets the cold. So we've failed our goals. What does that mean? Like, we're not feeling good that week. One of us is out of town for a work trip. Like, what? There's so many things that can get in the way of
You get a cold,
frequency
can't
goal.
stop, won't stop.
Yes. So there really isn't. They've done so many studies trying to figure out what's the ideal number. How often do people want to be having sex? And the thing is that no two people have the same answer.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. On average, kind of the best we've come up with as sort of a norm or an average is 52 times a year. So once a month, once a week.
Yeah.
That's kind of the average.
That's a good one.
Some people are far less because that's what works for their lifestyles. I mean, that's definitely not taking into account if you have kids or really been like busy jobs or things like that.
Especially long-term relationships. There's so much going on, especially with kids and your job and all of that. And we should all make time to relax.
Yes.
So we are in a place where we can be responsive and spontaneous or whatever. Yeah, but if you're constantly busy, I mean,
I like the idea of 52 a year because there may be, like you said, you're traveling or you're sick, but then you go on vacation, you're going to make up for it. You gotta go back to your number.
And sometimes those vacations are clutch to like just even reconnect, get yourself away from your monotonous schedules, reconnect, do fun things, and it that's been like it's
a big thing for people.
Is a massive reset.
It's one of those things where vacation experiences are often where we have taken away a ton of what we call the breaks. So we call it, this is from Emily Nagowski's "Come as You Are" is a great book to be able to read, by the way, to learn more about these things. But we talk about, so with responsive desire, that's one of the things I talk to people about all the time is, okay, great, we've got these 2 types of desires. Both of them are what are really creating sort of our libido. It's not just one or the other, which a lot of times spontaneous is what people think of as libido. How often do you just randomly want it versus how often can I choose to want this and tap into this? Have my partner help me to activate this, right? But so we talk about the accelerators and the brakes.
Okay.
Right.
We're going to take a break and come back and talk about the accelerators. And we will be right back
After this break.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
And we're back with Kayla Kuykendall. And
Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. Oh my goodness. We're having such a great discussion here.
Yes.
We really are.
Love you to share this.
Acceleration.
Yes. Great, because you said acceleration and brakes.
Yes. So those are the 2 sides, right? So accelerators are the turn-ons, the brakes are the turn-offs.
Yeah.
And so we always have, it's kind of like this scale that's being tipped. We always are going to have like some brakes that we can eliminate and get rid of. Other brakes are there and we can't necessarily get rid of them. So we want to make sure we've got enough of the accelerators and things that are really turning us on to balance that out or to tip the scale so that we're in the mood and we're wanting to be a part of something. Right. And so that might look like, I like the metaphor brakes and accelerators because you can slam on the emergency brake, or you can just barely tap the brakes, right? You can slam on the gas and go, or you can just be coasting. right? There's a big range of how impactful. So I don't want you to be thinking about only what are the 10s, what are the things that are, oh my gosh, I am ready to go. But instead it's, what are a couple things that we might be able to add together that will make that work for us, right? And this, one of the things I always like to challenge people to think about is from different perspectives. So what are you doing for you?
Right.
What is your partner doing? And what is your space doing? So what is the environment, right? Are you, like if you're looking around your space, are you seeing piles of laundry that you haven't put away? Are you seeing a bed that's freshly made and is really clean and inviting? Are you smelling the garbage that is piling up? Are you hearing the kids next door being really loud? Or are you hearing your partner telling you amazing compliments?
Yeah.
Right? Like what are those things that are either, again, like kind of taking away from the situation or that are really enhancing it for us?
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever like tapped in or even creating a space, like, is there like a feng shui to your bedroom that you can
that's a good way.
Because I think my bedroom is probably, it could use some massive help. So what are some things that you can do in your bedroom to enhance that?
Well, I would recommend too, by the way, there's a show on Netflix called How to Build a Sex Room, which is great. Wow. It's a fun show. And so she goes in and does like full on makeovers.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh my God, I'm going to apply to that show.
Yeah, it's great. It's a super fun thing to watch with your partner to be able to kind of talk about and say, what do we like? What turns you on versus what turns me on? What are things that
That would be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do. And it's a great conversation starter. Yes.
50 Shades of Grey, or it could be like candles and, LED lights.
Rose petals.
Yes, and that's actually what was great is the show had a whole range of those things. One was like the dungeon and one's like pillows and comfy blankets. And this more sensual kind of moment. And that's the thing, like for just yourself, like looking around your space and figuring that out. I like to think of it as a sensual template. And so looking at all of your senses. So what am I seeing? What are the things that I am visually looking at in this moment, right? So what are there, there's on your bedside table, for example, is there a picture of your kids or of grandma or Jesus?
Yes, right.
Those things aren't.
That might ruin the moment.
They're not super big turn-ons for people, right?
They're
not turn-ons at all.
No, those are what we would call breaks.
Like not even a little bit.
Right. Grandma, quit staring at me.
Right? It's not. That's not an accelerator. That's a break. But
that's an emergency break.
That's emergency.
And you'd be surprised how many people do, though. They have thought about decorating for the daytime for just like general view, but not for when they want to get into a sexual headspace.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun though to do it as a couple and be like,
yes,
because what you would like, what Chris would like, and like let's blend both of our ideas together. That would be kind of
for like the smell is the next sense that I have people talk about, and that one I challenge people to go on 2 different kinds of dates.
Yeah.
So go to a candle store. Go to Bath and Body Works, go to Yankee Candle, wherever, and just start smelling candles. Start to pick up on with each other. Yeah. What are things where,
a good one.
Like a lemon scent, maybe I like in the kitchen, but maybe I want more of a deep masculine smell in the bedroom because that just relaxes me and brings out that vibe. But we maybe don't want something too much like a lavender that's going to put me to sleep. Like we want to watch, like what is it that we're incorporating into the room?
Yeah, I think that's a great one because I can just visualize just the fact of the 2 going.
Yes.
And then in the process, you know what you're shopping for. Then when you get home, it's on.
And it's a great way to initiate the conversation.
Absolutely.
About it too.
Like, what do we want this to look like? How would what would enhance this for us? The other one is the idea of going to like a perfume counter or a cologne shop.
I thought you were going to say mattress store.
That would be good too, for sure.
Definitely don't do a water bag.
That's very true. Yes.
Okay,
and have your partner pick out 4 or 5 that they are really attracted to, and then you've got 4 or 5 to pick, and like to narrow it down from, and then you pick out 4 or 5 colognes that you really like the smell of that might draw you to want to touch him even that much more, and then he can pick the one that he likes out of those 5. Right? That's a great little exchange.
My husband and I have done over the past year and a half is whenever we go traveling or we go to a new place, we get a scent that is like maybe like it speaks to that area because it associates like these amazing memories. And we use it as like, either a spray for the couch or for the bed.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It's something fun that we do.
Definitely. That's a great way to incorporate because smell's really powerful.
It is.
Right? That's a really, really powerful scent. It brings out memories for people. And so if we're creating those positive associations with smells, then that's going to be something that we're tapping into desire that much more. Versus, again, if it's a break, it's something where we're, maybe the smell of like fresh baked cookies. Maybe we love that smell.
But not in the bedroom.
Exactly.
Well, cologne is a break for me. It's like apple pie.
Well,
and
so
don't
might
like
not
the
be
smell of cologne or perfumes and colognes. I don't know. I just they bother me.
Everybody's really different around what sensitivities they have. So finding for you for you maybe the absence of a strong smell, maybe that's the accelerator.
Yeah.
And that's
or
okay
laundry
too.
detergent.
Yeah.
Maybe go shop laundry detergent.
I smell that like gets me in the mood.
Sure.
I'll think about it. You guys don't need to. You guys don't care.
Well, and think about again
until you figure it out.
Thank you. We're gonna make you feel really awkward. Find an answer.
Let me think about this.
And again, don't look for it to be like, oh, I smell this and it gets me in the mood.
Yeah.
But more so that, oh, if I'm smelling this is going to be adding to the experience versus taking away from it.
Yeah.
Right.
This is all really good advice.
What about a shower scent? I mean, you like fresh body wash.
She likes eggs.
Eggs in the bedroom.
I like eggs, but they don't get me in the mood.
No, not so much. Yeah, that's by the way with the smells and things too. Like that's a good example of how breaks are not necessarily innately negative. They might just be things that aren't turning us on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So again, like you love your kids.
Right.
But them being right on the other side of the door knocking is a turn off.
Yeah.
It's not getting in the mood.
Yeah.
And so it's not like get rid of them. Like that's not the answer to those things, right?
Like,
It's
I think I'm so used to wearing workout clothes and stuff like that, and I feel like sometimes if we go out, sometimes I just don't want to dress up. I just want to be comfortable. But I do notice that if I take the time to do my hair and do my makeup and wear something nice, it makes me feel more sexy and more like in the mood.
Those are the accelerators you're doing for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think also your partner, it's an accelerator for your partner because he feels like you're actually putting effort into looking good for him, and he feels like it's almost like a sense of self-worth because you still want to
impress him.
After all these years.
Yeah. Sometimes we're doing it for us to help ourselves to tap into it, and other times we're doing it because we know that that's going to be something that really brings some.
I think our audience really needs, especially those that are really like into working out, know and understand the importance because we can get so obsessed with what we do for a living as far as that we look a hot mess when we're at home. Kind of. I mean, our bodies look great. You know what I mean? But it's like we're like so many, dudes like this tanning.
Yep.
Can't all the work you have to do for those competitions.
You know what I mean? Living in always being in workout clothes. Yeah. Oh, I'm saving my hair for this. Oh, I'm gonna get my Botox for the show. I mean, everything. We're obsessed.
Well, and to your point, their desire is gone. How many husbands are like, I can't wait for prep to be over. Right. So that my wife back, so she's not focused so much on her. I mean, honestly, with our industry, we see it all the time, and you're like, you want your husband or boyfriend to support you, but just give him some attention, whether it's
little
intimacy
and see what happens.
sex.
Right, because
you gotta do that too. It's not always just about you.
Yeah, because 16-week prep, that's a long period of time if you do the math on it.
You might be divorced.
Sure. How quickly is that creating too many breaks, too many hurdles to get over?
Stop on competing.
Sure.
Now, I've had times like where I was exceptionally horny when I was like really dieting on a strict diet. I was like, wow. Yeah. But then there was the flip side when it was over, then I was like, so I just need balance.
Yes.
And I like what you're
be able to find like what are some of those things balance. You can add in during those other times. How do you balance out those feelings for ourselves?
Like I when I'm at my top condition, that is when I feel like the
really
sexiest.
sexy.
And I'm like, let's
we all have I think those stories.
Let's take this car for a ride.
Well, and look at all the things that are going into those time periods for you, right? Yeah. It's not just, I'm in competition competition mode, so I'm turned on. It's
Right.
you're doing the most for yourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think it just comes down, to that's when you feel most confident.
Right.
Yes.
And when you feel confident,
Yes.
you feel extra sexy. So maybe
Yes.
doing even things like getting dressed up,
Yeah.
and and putting a little bit of effort in, like that always makes me feel a little bit sexier
Yeah.
than what
Totally, yes.
than getting. Because I live in my workout clothes too, but sometimes you have to
Right.
okay, I'm going to go work out early in the morning
Yeah.
or early in the day, and I'm going to change and I'm going
Intentionally.
to get out of these clothes. Sometimes I will intentionally do that so I can just, I don't know, look like a person, because we are so used to just living in workout clothes.
Yeah.
So Chris, that's her putting out the vibe.
She's gonna put these clothes on. She's gonna freaking be
I think he
desirable.
knows
Yes.
that.
That's when you're desirable. That's another piece of the brakes and accelerators, by the way, is the thoughts and beliefs that we have.
Yeah.
So are we thinking that we are desirable? We are worth being desired. We are sexy in that moment.
I think that is probably the top of the list of.
So much of this seems like it comes down to communication with your partner.
Absolutely.
So what about anyone who maybe is having trouble kind of bringing that up? What advice do you have? Because again, without going to a sex
It is.
therapist, if you guys out there listening, if you're like, I want that more, how do you encourage someone to initiate communication to discuss these?
It's honestly a really big challenge for people, right? Because we're so nervous about it. We feel so, it's so vulnerable to share those things because, I mean, that's what vulnerability is. It's putting ourselves in a place of we're risking something. And so being able to, honestly, I think the first step I always recommend is to take the time to actually really explore that for themselves first.
Ooh, that's a good,
Like what is it that, do you even have those answers for yourself yet? Have you ever really thought about it, or have you always kind of waited for your partner to bring that to you? Right, and so really examining and figuring out what is the verbiage, what are the things that work for you to be able to really feel connected to that part of yourself. Then we can start to kind of just embrace that, and then there are different moments that might be able to present itself where our partner might be more curious about that, of like, why are you now suddenly dressing in normal clothes than you did when you're so used to wearing workout clothes all the time? Oh, well, because I've noticed that makes me feel a lot better. Or being able to, I always think, it's always okay to do those really small stepping stones. Like start with something small. Don't necessarily feel like you have to jump into this huge conversation, but instead just subtly start talking about these things. Start talking about a single one. So I've noticed that, when you wear that lotion, it just drives me nuts. I just love that. Or, I'm realizing that my mind, I feel so much more relaxed when XYZ.
But you're right. If you don't, because think about it, if you don't really know about yourself, and then they pose the question back to you, you're like, wait, this was supposed to be about
you were supposed to answer, wait.
That's true. Figure it out for yourself.
I'm sure that happens all the time in therapy. You have a couple, and then it turns. Because therapy, I know a lot of guys, but I think they would jump and be like, "Oh yeah, let's go to sex therapist."
They would say absolutely.
Shockingly, it's the opposite.
Really?
Oh yes. No, men are much more resistant.
Probably.
Oh,
yes.
you're right.
They're much more resistant about going to.
They're like that makes me nervous. What do you mean we got to talk? Exactly. It's a pride thing. It's
they have to admit there's an issue. Interesting.
Men don't have a lot of dynamics that they're socialized to talk about these things. Women have a lot more just practice being able to, again, even though sex is such a taboo topic, we still at least have so much more just adjustment time on using the friendship circles that we have to talk about things.
I feel like it's easy to talk. It's easier for women to talk about it amongst each other, but when it comes down to actually talking about it with your partner, that's something that is a lot harder to do.
Sure, it really is. It's so much more difficult to, which I always think is funny because people are like, well, they're my best friend, they're my partner, they're my life. Why is this the thing that I can't talk to them about? Because it's a lot easier to talk to me, honestly, in my sessions because I am impartial to it. It doesn't impact them.
I do feel like there is, we are socialized at a young age to believe in gender roles, but on the other hand, I also feel like women are much just innately more emotionally attached to sex, whereas men are not as emotionally attached to it. So there is that plays a role in it. I don't know how much of that is nature versus nurture, but I do feel like a lot of that is, nature. I feel like we just by nature are more emotionally attached to, like if we are going to connect with a man on that level, it's like we want that to be like that's our, we're connecting to that. And men, I don't know, I just from my observation in life and just living this long so far, of just what I've observed of, maybe what I think is more of like a nature gender role issue, maybe not even an issue, but you know what I mean?
No,
it's different.
That's why I think you're so important. You really are. You save a lot of marriages. I mean, just
because let's face it, there are plenty of women that are like, no, I just want to have sex and go. Can you not be so clingy?
Like 150
and then guys that are like, wait, no, this means something. It's so interesting what pieces of it are nature versus nurture versus the socialization that we've had or impacts of society over centuries. There's a lot to that.
It depends person to person, right?
Yes,
it's like
absolutely.
A very case by case.
Wow, we have so much to talk about, and we didn't even talk about the laws of attraction.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. There's so many different things.
All right, we're gonna
get more into intimacy, all of that. Yes.
If you guys want her to come back, please comment below.
Yes. We definitely will have Kayla back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And I know you guys learned a lot, and that's why you gotta subscribe and like and follow. And we'll see you again on another great episode of Femme Flex Friday.